Referrals and recommendations not only help differentiate your candidate base from your competitors' candidates, but also it's a really good measure of how good the relationships you have with candidates and clients are. Because if I asked you, would you recommend a mobile phone salesman to one of your friends, you'd probably have a quick shudder. And the reason you'd have a shudder is because you would be scared that by recommending that salesperson, your reputation is going to be tarnished. And so what we've got to think about when it comes to gaining recommendations and referrals is really about from the candidate's perspective. Because what effectively you're asking them to do is to borrow their relationship and allow you to use that relationship in building another relationship with someone else. Which means if you go and do a bad job, you're going to tarnish that person's reputation and maybe even that relationship. So before you even get referrals and recommendations from candidates, you've got to think about what have you done to build a good relationship with the candidate already. The way I like to look at it is like an emotional bank account. So if you've done things for the candidates, so say for example you might have got them an interview, you may have got them a role, but it may be even you returning calls, it may have been you taking the references that you said you were going to take, then you're much more likely to get a candidate to give you a referral or recommendation because there's sort of an emotional debt there. If you're on that first call with a candidate, then they're unlikely to give you a recommendation or referral because really you haven't given them anything yet. So what you've got to try and get a candidate to feel is not only that you're looking to help them, but you also want them to feel that you're the type of person they'd want to introduce someone else to as well. So things that can contribute to candidates wanting to give you referrals and recommendations are these. Being in touch regularly. And sometimes that might mean calling a candidate to say, hi, I haven't got any jobs, but I thought of you just to let you know. Because candidates don't mind if you don't have vacancies, but what they mind is where they've invested time in coming to meet you or being on the phone with you, but then never hear from you again. So just the fact that you call back regularly to keep in touch with them will immediately elevate you above everybody else. Another way for you to get candidates to feel like they want to give you referrals and recommendations is just deliver on what you say you're going to do. If you call at 3 o'clock when you said you were going to call at 3, that will build trust. If you said you were going to take a reference and you took the reference and you called back to give them feedback, then they're more likely to trust you. But if you don't do what you say you're going to do and you never return their calls, it's very unlikely you're going to get referrals and recommendations. So other than the fact that they ask for a referral before they've got a relationship, the biggest mistake recruiters make is they actually ask if they know anyone else that's looking at the moment. And whilst on one hand that's the very logical question that you'd want to ask, in reality most people don't talk to all their friends and definitely don't talk to their work colleagues about them looking for another opportunity. The reason is that they're scared that if that gets out into the open and their boss finds out, then they don't really want that hard conversation. And for other people, their career and their job is a very personal thing that they would only share with their closest family members. So the way to approach asking for referrals is not asking people whether you know anyone looking for a job, but think about what people complain about their jobs to their friends. So think about when you're in the pub with your friends and you talk about your job, what do you talk about? What do they talk about? Because those will very quickly become the things that you need to ask your candidates for in order to find referrals and recommendations. So do you know anyone at the moment that is unhappy with their manager? Do you know anyone at the moment that's complaining about not earning enough money? Do you know anyone at the moment that's maybe passed some exams but hasn't got the promotion that they were looking for? Do you know anyone that's fed up with their commute? Or do you know anyone that looks for a little bit more work-life balance? All those things are things that people complain about when they talk about where they spend a large proportion of their life. You can also ask, rather than saying, do you know anyone that's looking? Ask them who the best person to do a job is. So if you're asking for a financial controller, ask them who their best management accountant is that they've ever worked with. When you're talking to a client, ask them who the best locum doctor is that they've ever had come into the surgery. And don't always ask at the level that you're speaking to. If you ask above or below the level, you're much more likely to get a referral or a recommendation. If you're asking a .NET developer, For another .NET developer, they're more than likely going to say, well, couldn't you sort me out first? That's what you've promised to do. The last thing you need to consider is you're only ever going to get a very small number of referrals and recommendations if you only ever ask a small number of times. It may be you have to ask 30, 40 or 50 times to get one referral, which means that you need to work out a way to ask for referrals and recommendations on every call if you're looking to get a significant number to impact your business in a significant way. So now you've organised your referrals and recommendations into a nice organised list on your planning book or in your CRM system. We've got to think about how do we actually approach referrals and recommendations. Now, as you probably know, these people aren't sitting there waiting for your call, looking for a new opportunity. What you've got to do is call with the respect of the person's relationship that you're taking in your hands. And so when you approach this call, it's really important that you approach it in a very calm and considered way to demonstrate that you're really looking to find out how they're feeling at the moment rather than to make sure whether they're looking for a role. So the opening of the call is really reinforcing and introducing the reason that you're calling, which is the referral or the recommendation from the individual. And at this point, go quiet. And what they'll often do is ask how you know John. And so what you should have done when you've got the referral or recommendation is ask John how he'd like you to reference the relationship that he's got. Because some people may be happy to refer names but don't necessarily want you to use their name when they're making that referral or a recommendation. What you then do is ask candidates a series of questions to understand how they're feeling about their current career. It may be John said that they don't like their commute. It may be John said that they're not having the opportunity that they're looking for. But you've got to be very careful about the confidence that may well have been shared with you. So I always ask questions to get the candidate to re-explain the questions where I think they may well have a pain. So if someone said, I think John's struggling with his commute at the moment, the first question I would ask is, how are you dealing with your commute at the moment? Because I understand you live here. What I'm doing is asking a question where I know I'm going to get an answer that will open the candidate up. What you're then going to do is just move into your normal passive recruiting call and asking them what they're looking for from their next career. What do they actually want from their next job? And what is it that they would have to see in an opportunity that might inspire them to maybe look at another opportunity? The third stage of this call, which again is always about building trust, is giving them the choice as to how they want your relationship to develop going forward. Would you like to progress with this opportunity? And if not, how would you like me to keep in touch with you in the future? Hopefully, this gives you a really good understanding of not only how to source referrals and recommendations, but also how to approach the call.